Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Club. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host Tate and the Hour, and on today's show we'll be reviewing Quentin Tarantino's 2009 alternate history war film Inglourious Basterds, starring Brad Pitt, Christoph Waltz and Michael Fassbender. For those of you who are new to the format, how Film Club works is that at the end of our main show we take it in turns each week to recommend a movie that ties in somehow to whatever we reviewed in the main show. This week was obviously the new Bond film Spectre, and it was my choice to pick a film this week, but I think I came up with two movies and gave you the choice between Road to Perdition and Inglourious Basterds. We both agreed on Inglourious Basterds, obviously, and the link for this week was the fact that it's Christoph Waltz. He's in both movies. We loved him in Spectre. We thought he was great in that, so this is a film that we both wanted to talk about, and I believe this is a show first that we're talking about a Tarantino film, which sounds crazy,
Yes.
but
Why haven't we done more?
I know, but in my opinion, it's a great film to start that on. So yeah, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, unless it's a film like that has a twist or something like that. In terms of Film Club, we usually just go straight into spoilers because the way we see it, it's been out for quite a few years, and if you haven't seen it by now, then you are doing yourself a disservice. So, disclaimer right now: if you haven't seen it, you don't want to know anything about it, turn this off, but go and buy the movie because it's awesome and you'll love it. But yeah, so we'll get into it now. Usually we start these things off with our thoughts before going in, and if we saw the trailer before. I'm trying to take my mind back. I think the first ever Tarantino film I watched was Kill Bill when it hit DVD. I was way younger than I should have been to see that movie. That's obviously a definitely 18 rated film, and I was not 18 at the time. I didn't care, absolutely loved it. I couldn't wait for Kill Bill 2, and then I watched that when that came out on DVD. I didn't fancy my chances trying to get into the cinema to see that at that age. So I was already a big Tarantino fan, more or less off the back of Kill Bill. And then this film came out, and it sort of dropped under the radar for me. Like, I was playing catch up to a lot of his other films, went back and watched Reservoir Dogs, and I believe when I watched this film, I picked this up along with Pulp Fiction, and I think I had a day where I just had a double feature. I watched Pulp Fiction first, went straight to this one. But I remember seeing the trailers, and honestly, I think the trailers paint a very different picture of what this film is actually about, and sort of which is the main character it follows,
Yeah.
really, because I remember the trailer and obviously the title itself. The film itself really doesn't focus on the bastards all that much themselves, like Brad Pitt and his gang of, his like crew that he works with. Because like Pulp Fiction as well, I think if you're going to try and decide who the main character is, it's quite a challenge to do that.
Um, well, as far as my Tarantino background is, I went into Inglourious Basterds blind. Like, I didn't see any of the trailers, didn't see any of the promotion art stuff. It was recommended from a friend. He lent me the DVD, and I was like, okay, what is it? And he's like, it's a war drama. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. But the first Tarantino film I watched was Pulp Fiction with my dad about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, slightly less illegal than what you were doing with Kill Bill. But I loved Pulp Fiction. It was a great film. And from there, I just went through and watched all of them in order of him releasing them. And since then, Tarantino is probably one of my favorite directors, and I'm really looking forward to The Hateful Eight later in the year.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, obviously, we'll have a review on the channel for that. Can't wait for that one. Luckily, it comes out in the month of my birthday, like Django did as well, so that should be a good one to see for that. But yeah, and I mean, after I saw this one, when I did the double feature of Pulp Fiction and this, I honestly preferred Inglourious Basterds at the time to it. Since then, I've sort of gone back to Pulp Fiction and saw, more of the merits of that film. And I love Pulp Fiction, don't get me wrong.
It's more quotable.
It definitely, yeah. It's more iconic, I'd say, as well, like the imagery in that with Jack Rabbit Slims and all the stuff with that. I just thought that Pulp Fiction was perhaps a little too long, and especially when it got into the sort of Bruce Willis storyline, that dragged a little bit for me. But so for a long time, Inglourious Basterds was sort of my favourite Tarantino movie. And you know, there's a lot of people say that Tarantino's best films are his earlier ones, and I would probably agree with that now. Really, I would say his style changed when he made Kill Bill, and since then, all of his films have sort of been in the same tonality as that.
Even if they're in the same tone, I feel like he's one of those directors at the moment, he's just trying to tick off every single genre.
Yeah,
I mean, the last one was like a slave bounty hunting film. We've had Death Proof, which was a car crash of a film, in my opinion. Which was a slasher film. This one's a war drama, and we've got a western coming up. I
yeah,
mean, he is literally going through. Okay. Oh, next is sci-fi, and then we got period drama. Who
I,
wants to see a Tarantino period drama?
I can imagine that in my head right now, what that film would look like, and yes, just all of this. And Kill Bill as well, that was with one and two combined, that was sort of an amalgamation of the old spaghetti westerns as well as the old martial art type films as well.
I'd say that was more of a martial arts film, like a revenge martial arts film, homage to like the Japanese cinema and stuff like that.
I think the second one is definitely more of a western, like just in pace and like the dialogue, the slow build, everything
Yeah,
like that. But yeah, getting back to Inglourious Basterds, the plot for anyone still listening that's curious, it's it's an alternate take on history because something happens towards the end of this film which just did not happen in history
no,
at all. And really, it sort of focuses on two plot lines. Really, you've got both trying to assassinate the German political leaders. One's from a young Jewish French cinema projectioner, and then the other is from the American soldiers, Jewish American soldiers, led by Brad Pitt's character Aldo Rain,
and then we
and
got the British.
and the British as well. Yeah, they get introduced into it as well. So it's basically everyone just trying to take down Hitler. That's ultimately the plot, but it's told from a lot of characters' perspectives. It's told in chapters, just like Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill was, and it's sort of like as the whole plans intersect, to try and take down Hitler at the end. But
Yeah.
I guess we could start it off with our favourite thing about it and our least favourite thing about it. We sort of introduced this with the Spectre one, although that was a lot more difficult to do based on that we were going into a spoiler-free section at the start. But because this is spoilers, I think it'll be a lot easier to do. So, Tate, do you have a favourite thing and a least favourite thing? And then we'll sort of take the discussion from there.
My favourite thing is the dialogue.
Yeah.
This film has some of the best Tarantino dialogue. It may not be as quotable, but there is some kind of... he has a magic, I don't know, a magic typewriter or something like that when he writes these films. Every line was flawless in the film. Every line was well thought out, delivered very well by the actors, I feel, as well. There wasn't a single bad performance in this film. Even Mike Myers put on a good performance.
Even Eli Roth was tolerable.
Even Eli Roth and Mike Myers both put on good performances. And yeah, the only bad thing I'd really say about the film is possibly a bit too long.
Yeah, it currently stands at about 150 minutes.
Yeah,
So
it's 2.5 hours. I can't do that.
Tarantino really needs just like a script editor. Just like, this is great stuff, Quentin, but it's too goddamn long. And you know what? That was my problem with Django as well. Like, the whole bit, it comes to like a natural climax, the film, and then
Yes.
it goes on for like another half hour. And that's probably my biggest problem with that film.
Thing
But
is, though, he got it right first time with Reservoir Dogs.
oh
That
yeah,
film was like, how long? 80 minutes long or
yeah.
something like that? He got that
Nowadays, if
spot
he
on.
was making that movie, it would be like 3 hours long, and he would go into every single member of the Reservoir Dogs.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm just looking on here on Wikipedia. It says that Tarantino originally wrote the script in 1998, and he struggled with the ending of it, and he held off filming and pushed it back till after he finished Kill Bill and Death Proof. Um, so if I'm going with my positive thing, I would sort of like echo with what you just said. The script is fantastic, and like just to add to that, I'd probably say the characters as well. If you've just sort of like got every single Tarantino character laid out, there's definitely a few from this that would make the cut. I love Brad Pitt's character in this. I think he's hilarious, and Christoph Waltz, who we'll talk much more about later on. this was really, the film that's made him a household name, I would say now. I know he did
Yeah.
loads of other projects before this, but now when you see Christoph Waltz on a poster, you know exactly who it is. And to me, if you track his progress back to where he became popular, it was from this film. Um, so yeah, they're my positive things about it. Really, as well as this, it's beautifully shot as well. Just the cinematography, you know what you're getting in for with a Quentin Tarantino movie. He's a filmmaker through and through. He knows exactly how film should be shot. I think he even still shoots on actual film as well. I know he doesn't like digital filmmaking. If I'm going with a problem I have with the film, I sort of have two, one of which is more prevalent for me with Django Unchained, but not so much for this. My main problem is the ending. And reading here, it's interesting when it says that he struggled with the ending. I can sort of see that because to me, the character of Christoph Waltz in this film, Hans Lander, he has a character change towards the end of the film, which I really think goes against his character. I think it feels very rushed and just comes out of nowhere, so we can sort of wrap the film up quickly. I don't know if you felt the same way about that, but to me, I mean, the actual final scene of the film is fantastic in that it echoes back to a scene from earlier on in the film, but just the sudden, 180 of the character, I didn't really buy that too much. And another one is the tone. Because there are moments of this film where, when it is serious and it's played like a serious war drama, like your friend billed it as when he lent you the copy, um, when it's
Um,
like that, it is genuinely gripping and chilling, and Tarantino does this so well very often, just creating suspense. But then you get moments that are more comedic and are more sort of in the line of Kill Bill, a bit more wacky, and this goes as well with the choice of music as well. And like if this was played as all serious all the way through, I think this could be an example of one of the best war films in the history of cinema. I honestly do. I think it's fantastic, but when you get these sort of more comedic and wacky slapsticky moments, I won't say it detracts from the film, but it's like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. And to me, it's just sort of like a tonal clash. Not so much of a problem for me with this one because I still do like that tone to it, but definitely in Django, that was one of the big problems I had with that film. It was like Tarantino, it's like the musical cues and everything like that. There's a lot that sort of grab you out of it. I don't know if you had that problem. You probably didn't, but
no.
what are your thoughts? No.
In
A
fact,
lot of people
I'd
don't.
just like to say that I feel like, just on the point of Hans Lander as a character flipping on a dime at the end, it fitted his character perfectly. He didn't like the name The Jew Hunter all the way through the film, and I feel like that may have been echoing to the end as well, because he didn't want to be associated with them. He just had a job. He was good at that job, and he always said throughout the film, I don't like doing it, it's my job, but I do it as best as I can because it is my job.
Mm.
And him basically, like being a traitor to the Nazis at the end, flipping immediately, like, as soon as he knows that he's losing, he's like, yep, I've got to somehow make this win for me.
Mm.
That's his character. And that's the character kind of that you can see all the way through from the start of the film. Comedic-wise, I feel like, the characters, the bastards themselves, are the comedy of the film.
Yeah.
I can't take any of their scenes seriously, because it's Brad Pitt. And all these different people. I feel like every single time they were on screen, it wasn't serious. And that was the whole point of the film. It was there for for the comedic relief. I feel like, how do I pronounce this? Shoshana?
Shajana or something. Yeah.
Shojana's character was the serious bit of the film.
Yeah.
She was the real revenge story. She had a reason to be vengeful, whilst it was just these Americans killing them Nazis. And that's how the film worked for me. You had the comedic team going after Hitler, and the really serious, you have a reason to go for Hitler, reason to kill Hitler. That was how I took the film, and I thought that worked perfectly well. Because even towards, going into the final few, scenes of the film, where they're in the movie cinema,
Yeah.
every single scene with Brad Pitt in there is hilarious. Him trying to speak Italian.
Oh god, I
Just-
love that bit.
every single scene where Brad Pitt is on the screen, he made me smile, he made me laugh.
Yeah.
And you never saw Shosanna and Aldo Rain on the screen at the same time, so you could never have that conflict between the two characters. But their storylines did overlap, and that's what I liked about the film.
I can totally see that, and I thought you might say that as well about the tone, and everyone seems to agree with that. As I said, it's not a huge problem for me with this film. It's just that, like, I think it was the case of the trailer. In all honesty, like as I said, like the trailer really focuses on Brad Pitt and the Bastards.
I'm
So
happy that I did not see the trailer then when
yeah,
I went to go see the film.
like if that was the film and it was just played for laughs all the way through, and it was sort of like a World War II spoof movie, then I think I would be completely fine with that tone all the way through. It's the fact that when you have that comedic tone and then you have serious stuff that is done perfectly, as I said, like the opening scene is probably in my top three if I think about it. Quentin Tarantino movie scenes of all time.
Yeah.
Like the how he builds the tension throughout that entire, and it's a long sequence as well. It's about 10 minutes, I'd say, of just dialogue. And as we said, like Tarantino does dialogue so well. I don't know, not a huge problem. And back to the Hans Lander thing before we move into the character. I don't know. At the end, for me, like okay, say like he moves to the other side. He joins with the US at the end. He just seemed to lose his intellect at the end, like especially when he's got the handcuffs on Brad Pitt and he just takes them off, and then surprise, surprise, one of the bastards shoots the guard with Hans Lander.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you expect them to do? I don't know. For me, it seemed a little, he seemed to lose all his intellect in that last scene, and that's probably why I have a problem with it. But
Thing is, though, he got away with it. I mean, he didn't die.
yeah,
And he got to live out his life in this tropical island or wherever he was going with this Medal of Honor, but he had the Nazi thing stitched onto his head, so they couldn't touch him. Like, they couldn't kill him, but they could sure as hell mark him
yeah.
as they wanted.
I'm gonna, what is it? They're gonna leave you with something you can't take off, and
Yeah.
then just carves a swastika into his forehead, which is brutal as hell, but it's amazing. But yeah, we'll get into it a bit more now. The characters, as I said, this film's got probably some of my all-time favorite Quentin Tarantino movie characters in there. And also, as I said at the start, it's very difficult to decide who is the main character of this film. So I think
would say Shoshana.
yeah, we'll start off with her first. So Shana Dreyfus, played by Melanie Laurent. I haven't really looked into the production and everything like that, but I swear to God that I heard that. I mean, she is a French actress, and she honestly really couldn't speak all that much English. So it must have been quite a difficult thing on set. Like, it must have been like translators and everything like that. But one thing I want to say as well, and I guess this goes for Tarantino's talent, either directing or script writing. Like, if I'm going to try and think of a percentage, I would say that 75% of this film is in another language.
A lot of it is.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say 75%, but I'd say quite a lot of it was.
yeah. Mostly French and German, obviously, but usually, I can't even imagine, like, because you're writing for another culture really as well, aren't you? Like with, it's a different language, it's different, cadence to the speech, different ways of phrasing things, but it works, and that must be Tarantino's level as a writer, because he can still write such compelling dialogue in another language with actors that, I mean, as we said, like Christoph Waltz speaks about four languages in this film, and it just works. And with Shoshana, she's probably the main character in terms of the plot itself, I would say. And as I say, like the opening scene where her and her family are hiding under the floorboards, and
Yeah.
they're in hiding in a French dairy farm, and Hans Lander rocks up with his guys, and as soon as he arrives at the premises, you know that he knows that they're there, but he's
Yeah.
just slowly taunting them, and I think he says as well that they can't understand German. Or is it English? I think they can't understand English, isn't it? And then he switches languages at the end and pretends that he's leaving. Man, that scene's just incredible. And then from there, you really see this change in Shoshana as she gets, taken over by revenge, and rightfully so. Like, she wants to make these pay for what they did to her and her family.
I feel like that film perfectly set up, like that scene perfectly set up the film.
Yeah,
Without that scene, I don't think it would have been as good of a film. I mean, on if you're watching it on DVD or if you're watching around a friend's house, if that scene goes wrong and you don't like it, you just turn it off.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't watch the film, which would be horrible because it is a good film other than that scene. It's just that maybe this might be a slight bad point of the film, maybe a good point, but the best scene was the first scene.
Yeah.
After that, I wouldn't say it was all downhill, but it does drop down a slight level.
Mm. And I
But,
don't know if that's
hey.
like the intensity from that scene, perhaps. And I mean, there are other tense moments in the film. I mean, later on we get the scene with Michael Fassbender and Diane
the,
Kruger
bar.
in the bar, and you know she's trying to tell them the plan, and they keep getting interrupted. And you've got the other Nazi general in the room as well who interferes. I mean, that stuff's tense as well, and there are
And
other
then I
moments
think-
like that.
Like the scene in the cinema at the end where she gets shot.
Mm.
That's quite tense because she's trying to kind of lock the door, block out the door, make sure nobody comes in, and then I've got to find his name now. The Colonel guy, where is he? Major Hellstrom comes in.
Yeah, and you know, with that bit at the end, I think that's shocking for a first-time viewing
Sorry,
because
Frederick Zoller, I got that wrong.
yeah.
That's fine.
Like I was watching this film expecting Shoshana to, you know, get out of it, sort of like a Kill Bill ending, like she gets revenge on everyone and, you know, she leaves. But it's sort of, with exception to Brad Pitt and Christoph Waltz and the one other bastard, it's pretty much like a Shakespearean tragedy at the end. Everyone
Yeah, it is.
pretty much dies at the end in a very over-the-top, spectacular fashion. But we've got to talk more about Christoph Waltz here because, man, as I said, like this
Is
film.
is that role? Because as far as villains go, my favorite two villains are what's his name, Agent Smith from The Matrix, and Christoph Waltz here with Hans Lander.
Yeah.
Does he rank as one of the highest villains of all time, like the best with this role?
I see. If I'm given a top 10 list of villains, honestly, he'd be sort of one I'd forget about in terms of a list. But now you bring it up, I think he's definitely got to appear in there because, I mean, there's not many bits where he sort of shouts or goes crazy. There's the one scene that comes to mind where he strangles Bridget von Hammersmark, and you really see like his hair gets all messy and he goes insane. But other than that, he's very calculated, he's very cold, methodical, everything like that. Everything you want a good villain to be.
And isn't that scary?
And that, yeah.
You see villains lose it sometimes, but he loses it in such a controlled way. He shows no emotion beforehand, some emotion maybe whilst doing it, and then no emotion afterwards.
Yeah, and
Almost like a reset. He just drops back down to normal level.
yeah, totally. And I know we've spoke to death about the first scene, but I mean, there's that one as well when he leaves and then he signals the guys with the machine guns to come in to shoot up the floorboards. And then probably another one of my favourite scenes with him, it's a really small scene as well. It's where Shoshana's brought into that cafe and she speaks with the, I think is it Frederick Zoller?
Yeah, Frederick Zoller.
And she, like they're organising her cinema to be the one that premieres the film. Nation's Pride, I believe the film's called, which is awesome because on the DVD there's a little special feature where you get to see that entire film. It was made as like a separate companion film and you can watch it. And then Colonel Hans Lander walks in at the end just as she's about to leave and sits with her. And I think he says something like, "You remind me of someone I've seen before," and like the look of horror on her face as she's like, "Oh God, he knows." And you know what? That's the beauty of it. Like, does he actually know or doesn't he? Because he sort of stares at her with like a menacing glance, and he goes, "Oh, but I can't remember." And then he like stubs his cigarette out and leaves. And then that beautiful moment, it's like really short, where she just like lets out a gasp and
he
cries.
knows at that point?
I think he does. I really, honestly, he's one of those villains where it's like he's you know, but what is it? Omniscient?
Yeah.
He knows everything. He's like Littlefinger. He's the Littlefinger of Inglourious Basterds, and it honestly wouldn't surprise me that because I mean, did he see her face? But he only saw the back of her,
head, but
I think he knows
still.
Yeah. And that's what's brilliant about his performance. Like, we don't know what was in the script and how much that was from his performance himself. But he's great all the way through this. Again, with the comedy, he gets a few comedic lines. I think one featured in the trailer, where he goes like, "Ooh, that's a bingo." Towards the end, he gets
Yeah.
that, and he's just an absolute joy to watch on screen all the way through. Even though he's one of the most despicable bad guys you'll probably ever see, he's so much fun to
He's
watch.
brilliant.
And then that probably takes us on to our next biggest actor in the film. We have Brad Pitt as Lieutenant Aldo Rain, who is the leader of the Bastards.
The
The
most American guy.
stereotypically American guy as well, which is brilliant.
And he plays it perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think now. This is honestly probably the best thing I've seen Brad Pitt in. I know a lot of people would go to like Fight Club and things like that, but to me,
Nah.
he,
This was his performance. In fact,
he's.
if you click on his name, the first thing that comes up is Inglourious.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. But you can just tell he's having so much fun in this role. He's chewing so much scenery in this film, and you don't care because he's just great in this film. As I said, stereotypically American. The best way I can describe his character is if you ask anyone from the UK to do an American accent, and they will probably go with like, from the south, like a deep south American accent, and that's pretty much what his character is in
Yep.
this. Um, and he gets probably that one scene that comes to mind as well is where I think it's his introductory scene actually,
Yeah.
where they've got the German commander hostage and they're asking him to point out a location of the others on the map. And he brings in Eli Roth, who plays the bear Jew with the baseball bat. All that stuff's great. And again, if I'm going to think of like another problem I had with this film, probably based on the trailer, he's really not in the film all that much. Like, considering the movie is called, from the title of
Yeah.
The Bastards, they're not in it all that much, which is bizarre because there's a bit in the film where, and I forget what the name of the guy is. He's one of the German members of the Bastards, and with a voiceover from Samuel Jackson, it sort of goes into this very Kill Bill style like backstory on this one member of the Bastards, and watching that, I was expecting it to do the same for all the other members as well, and just like solely focus on this ragtag team.
No.
But it really only does it with that one guy. But Brad Pitt, you mentioned it earlier. Without a shadow of a doubt, my favourite moment of his is where he, Eli Roth, and another member of the Bastards pose as Italian filmmakers or cameramen, isn't it? And they go to the premiere, and it says like, "Oh, we can speak Italian. Don't worry about it. We'll sneak in." Hans Lander shows up, and obviously he's fluent in Italian as well. And then,
And he just goes, grazie.
Arrivederci, and he's like, "Oh, it's so bad, but it's brilliant to watch." And we forgot to mention that as well with Hans Lander speaks four languages, that which just goes to show
Yeah.
how awesome Christoph Waltz is.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize, like, you pointed it out, and I was like, oh yeah, he does. He does actually speak, like, 4 languages in this film. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And then that brings us on to our next character as well. We'll probably leave it off here because there are so many other sort of side characters who are still, relevant to the story. But Michael Fassbender as Lieutenant Archie Hickox, who is the British agent who is sent in to a meeting with Bridget von Hammersmark as she has some news to help the British side to take down Hitler. I'm trying to think back. This may again have been the first thing I saw Michael Fassbender in. And
Wait a sec. Yeah, I'll have a look. See
yeah,
whether
if you bring up a list of his films and stuff,
Oh, 300.
yeah. See, when you go back, it was one of those films that must have been when he was like starting out, perhaps. Like it's not until I went back recently and realised that was actually Fassbender. But again, I think this was probably one of those films, like with Christoph Waltz, where when he was in this sort of made him a household name, and now you look everywhere. Fassbender's just did everything. I mean, we've got
Yeah, he
Steve
is.
Jobs coming up in a few weeks, which looks great. I've heard great things from that. And he was in Macbeth a few months ago as well. So, he's just going from strength to strength. And his character, although not in this all that much, he's still great. He's very British, but then again, he goes into the German dialogue as well. And what's brilliant about it is because he's posing as a German. After speaking German a little bit at school and like hearing like proper German people, he does a brilliant thing where he speaks in German, but there's a noticeable difference in his accent. Like it's almost like a posh British German, if that makes any kind of sense at all. It's
Oh yeah.
noticeably different. Yeah. And
Oh yeah.
it's as I was saying, like that bit in the cafe with where they're trying to get the information, and there's a German in there who's celebrating the birth of his son Maximilian. They were hoping for a secluded environment, but it's there's loads of Germans in there. There's a German high command in there as well who sits at the table. That's really tense stuff as well.
That is, yeah, and it doesn't end well, does
It
it?
doesn't end well. Again, it's like a Shakespearean tragedy. Everyone gets shot to pieces. Um,
And the one person who survives later dies in the movie.
yeah, I really didn't want her character to die. I really liked her
You knew it was
character.
going to happen, though.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, we could talk, to death about the characters, but regardless, they are some of the best that Tarantino's ever done. We can move into some of the other stuff now, like the writing and directing. It's, as you said, it's exactly what you'd expect from a Tarantino movie. I don't actually think he won anything for script writing in this, did he? The only
No,
Oscar went to Christoph Waltz for Best Supporting Actor, which, I'm not going to argue with that. He definitely deserved
no.
that. It wasn't until Django, I think, that he won one for Best Screenplay.
Yeah.
Um, but
Although, even with that, it's rated up in the top 100 films of all time.
yeah,
So, it's well received.
and in all
Um,
honesty, I think that this is a much better written film than Django is,
yeah.
and I prefer this film to Django as well.
Oh, definitely.
But directing, we talked about the tone earlier, that it does, it skirts the line from being serious with the comedy, and I think it does it very well. And the music as well. I mean, it's become like just a thing with Tarantino movies now. I would love to find Tarantino's iPod and see all the great songs he's got on there. He uses stuff from other films, other spaghetti westerns. Like I know there's some Ennio Morricone in there. There's even a David Bowie song in there, which may sound completely ridiculous, but believe me, when you see the movie, it
Fits in.
works. And it's probably one of my favourite scenes. It's that again, it's very similar to that shot from Kill Bill, the long, unbroken one shot, where it's sort of
She's
like,
preparing to
yeah,
do the dance, basically.
yeah, and it like tracks her like leaving her room all the way down the corridors through the premiere building with everyone in there, and I love shots like that. It's perfect. It's sort of like we talked about this in our Spectre review with the opening scene from that. It's very similar
Yeah.
to that. Um, and with music as well, with Hateful Eight coming out, that is going to be the first Tarantino movie that has a completely original score to it. He's not using any pre-release
Really?
music. Yep, and he's got Ennio Morricone. Oh, he's
That might
doing.
work in his favor.
Yeah. As I say, like I love Tarantino when he uses also, but sometimes, and I think this is a case with this, it would have been nicer to have just had a soundtrack and just let the film breathe with
Yeah.
it and be its own thing. And Ennio Morricone is phenomenal composer, not just westerns. He did the music to The Thing and so many other films as well. But he is the man for westerns. When you think of a western soundtrack, you immediately think of him. Stuff from Good, the Bad, the Ugly,
Yeah.
Fistful of Dollars, everything like that. So I'm really looking forward to the soundtrack from that movie. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we could talk about this film, but I think we've pretty much said everything.
No, I feel like we've gone through everything pretty well today.
So, do you want to just sort of sum up? Would you recommend the movie and your last words on the film?
No, this movie's horrible. We will not recommend that. This movie is great.
Yep.
If you wanted to watch a war film with some comedy in it, with a lot of action in it, and brilliant writing, great lines, great acting, and one of the best villains in cinema possibly ever, then definitely watch this film. If you've watched any of the other Tarantino films, then I would suggest watching this as well. Yeah, I'm really excited about what Tarantino has to come with the next film.
And I'm pretty much going to copy everything you just said. definitely, in my opinion, one of Tarantino's best. But I mean, he has so many good films; it's difficult to rank them. Phenomenal cast, amazing performances. As is the case with most of his films, the supporting cast is just as good as the main cast as well, which is the case here. One of the best written Tarantino films, I would say, and it's one I often find myself going back watching over and over again because I just love it that much. Be warned, if you're new to sort of Tarantino, first off, where have you been? But be warned, it is very dialogue heavy. There's not all that much action in it. The tension and everything like that comes purely from the words and the dialogue in the film, which I love, because Tarantino dialogue is, in my opinion, the best dialogue you will find in a film, and that is the case here as well. So I would definitely recommend Inglourious Basterds. It's difficult to say if like someone hasn't actually watched the film and made it to the end of this one, because we have spoiled like the whole movie. But yeah, that I think that will do it for our review on Inglourious Basterds. So be sure to rate, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of the film. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy. We're on Twitter at cinema_savvy, and we're also on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/cinema_savvy as well. So, stick around on the channel. Tomorrow we will have our main show, which will be our top 10 horror films. I know we're a little bit after the initial Halloween hype, but we haven't really done anything about horror films on the channel, and that will be your first top 10 as well, so that'll be cool to get up on the channel. And then the following week we'll have our Hunger Games series review. I need to get on watching those films because I haven't actually seen any of them yet, but that will be in anticipation for the final one, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, which comes out later this month. So until then, thank you very much for listening.